I'm very glad to welcome you today on the second day of the special edition of Responsible Fashion Series Skopje, dedicated to re-evaluation of Balkan crafts and fashion. I will lead the discussions today. Briefly to introduce myself for the ones that were not present yesterday. My name is Kristina Glegorovska. I'm a fashion researcher, editor, and creative industries consultant with extensive experience in the fashion tech domain. We will start both sessions together with Professor Ian King, who is here with us today. Welcome, Professor King. He is the thought leader behind Fashion Colloquia and Responsible Fashion Series as its continuation. Also, he's a professor of aesthetics and management at the Institute of Marangoni. Welcome, Ian, again. Yesterday, we've had an inspiring day. Lots of ideas were shared. What do you expect from today? Any sustainable secrets for the Balkan region?
You're asking me? Yes, I think so. Yes, I think there were some interesting questions raised yesterday about the potential of the Balkans. And I really think, the Balkans needs to, as we said yesterday, it needs to develop its story. Why is it a relevant place for fashion? What's it got? What does it do? And I think what we can understand very clearly, very early on, that it has the potential to be at all parts of the whole production, consumer and disposal of the fashion world. And I think that ability to have a holistic approach, I think, is the new future. So the Balkans can actually grasp that potential and realize what they have in their hands and invest in it now. This is the time to do it.
Of course, you're right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor King. So before we proceed with the session, just to mention the rules. It goes to all the guest speakers today. Please respect the time slots. Today we have many speakers in both of the sessions, and we want to give the same space to all of you to share your ideas. I will alert you if you take extra time, if you surpass the 10 minutes, and I will ask you to wrap up and finalize your sessions. And what is really important is it goes to all the participants and the audience. Don't forget to mute your mics. It applies to all of you. And the last one, this goes to the audience, to the guest speakers, and also to all the participants today. After each session, we will have a Q&A section. Please write your comments and your questions in the chat box. Maybe we will have time to address some of them directly, but nevertheless, all questions will be answered by the presenters in the chat box like it happened yesterday. And that's it. Let's continue with the interesting part now. Yesterday, we ended the day on a very positive note for Jelena Karitonova. She's the founder of Caravan Cultura Create Agency in the Netherlands. She talked about the renewed purposes of fashion and the importance of thinking outside of the bubble in order to progress one's idea. Well, in my opinion, thinking about outside of the box translates to thinking sustainable, combining and most importantly, listening to different voices from the fields of sustainable development and youth work in the fashion and crafts is our focus for today. And the first voice we want to hear is Monica Botamoy, the founder of the Cultural Intellectual Property Rights Initiative and a co-founder of Why We Craft. She's a cultural intellectual property and fashion lawyer and cultural sustainability consultant. Monica will speak about the laws of textile craftsmanship, creating culturally sustainable fashion in the Balkans. Welcome, Monica. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Kristina. It's an honor to be speaking to you today, especially in a region that is so close geographically to the place where I was born. I'm born in Romania. There are many debates of whether we are part of the Balkans or not, but definitely in terms of personality and blood, we feel very connected. So today I'm gonna speak shortly about topics that are not so often discussed in the fashion industry, and that is, how does the law protect textile craftsmanship, and how can we, as change makers in the fashion industry, contribute to a holistic, like you said, Kristina, and Professor King said it as well, to a holistic approach to sustainable development that takes into consideration people, planet, and profit, but most importantly, sustaining culture, sustaining heritage and lifestyles that have been transmitted to us from generation to generation. let's see. Here we have an image of different traditional cultural expressions around the world. In legal terminology, traditional cultural expressions are expressions that can be tangible and intangible. The tangible expressions consist of jewelry, traditional garments, all types of textiles, so craftsmanship and elements that we get inspiration from folk dress, as it has been referred to as well in the past. But it can also be elements of woodwork, like we saw in the exhibition for the event, stonework, etc. Intangible expressions are found in forms of songs, dances, rituals, stories, even hairstyles, words and names, practices that are transmitted from generation to generation in a community, and they often represent elements of cultural identity, elements of identity and belonging. These expressions are not to be treated with ease because they englobe traditional knowledge. What is this? Traditional knowledge consists of all kind of information, wisdom, knowledge, skills, practices, know-how that is passed on from generation to generation in a community. It can be an indigenous community, ethnic group, or local communities like we have in Romania, many in the Balkans, in different regions. And the relationship between the community and these expressions and this knowledge is not one of ownership. So it's very difficult to say, this is my property, who owns the culture. But the relationship is one of guardianship and custodianship. These expressions have been kept alive for centuries because of the care of the community. What happens in terms of law? The conventional intellectual property system doesn't protect traditional cultural expressions and traditional knowledge. They have included these expressions in the public domain. This means that these expressions can be taken and used without the right of the community or without a possibility for the community to legally react to this kind of use or misappropriation. This is problematic because cases of misappropriation can lead to cultural dilution, and we've seen so much in the past decade that the issue of cultural appropriation has been something of concern. So we don't want to culturally appropriate, we want to keep these expressions alive and to bring a contemporary expression to these expressions because they are living, they are alive, and they would normally transform with the communities that they come from. When the fashion industry is appropriating these designs one-on-one, we talk about cultural plagiarism and we talk about cultural dilution. And I just want to show you some examples here that I'm sure you probably have seen before, but what to the contrary of what happens in this amazing event here, where we showcase Balkan culture, in these examples, fashion designers have not mentioned the source communities, nor integrated the communities in the development, this contemporary interpretation of the traditional cultural expressions. In this case, we can't even talk about the contemporary interpretation because it's in fact a one-on-one copy, as we can see in the image. So is it Tom Ford or the Romanian community? We move on from Romania to an Inuit community and an element that is not necessarily used as a garment, but as a decorative textile, which was integrated almost identically in a garment piece. We also see here a case that I am very close connected to and heavily involved in, the case of Max Mara and the Oma community of Laos. And this is one of the first cases where we do have legal solutions, and together with our partners, the Traditional Arts and Technology Center in Laos, the Oma of the Nanam village in Laos, and the Cultural Intellectual Property Rights Initiative, we created a traditional textile design database for the Oma. The OMA now are recognized as custodians of their design, so we can prove this relationship, and they are open for collaborations with designers worldwide within a framework that I will be introducing in a moment. The slides are a bit slow. So a few examples of appropriation of the design plagiarism, which is something that can happen in different mediums, as you see, even using symbols out of context in a way that is not consented or appropriate by the in the eyes of the community where they come from. So, for example, the Sikh turban, that is an article of faith for the Sikh community, being used and worn by people who are not practicing the faith, the religion, is considered inappropriate by the Sikh community. So the question is then, what can we do and how can we change these laws? As fashion practitioners, as stakeholders and part of this ecosystem, we can work in collaboration with the custodians of traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions. Many of these communities are ready to co-design, to be part of collaborations. They're very welcoming, and they also have a lot of wisdom to share. This wisdom is not only in terms of the aesthetics of the garments that they create, but also in terms of design to minimize waste. There's so little waste in these communities, or a connection, emotional connection between people and garments. All these garments tell the story of this community, and we can co-create stories together with the communities. So we set up a framework, a minimum framework at the Cultural IP Rights Initiative, which we call the 3 C's rule: consent, credit, and compensation. And these 3 elements, they stem from existing legal documents that require the free, prior, informed consent of a community when using their traditional knowledge or traditional cultural expressions, acknowledging the source communities like we would do in any case of using someone's material. So that's why we talk about plagiarism in research, right? We need to credit the source. And benefit sharing, compensation in the form of sharing the benefits that result from the use of these expressions. When we do that, this is a picture of the free, prior, informed consent process with one of our collaborators in Bagru, India, for a project called Mahila Print. When we do that, when we involve the members of the community in decision making, and they feel acknowledged, they feel dignified, and the positive impact is large. The fashion industry can become an impact creator, and it can change the way we look at craft and the way these communities live and create. And you would know that in many parts of the world, communities, creative communities, traditional creative communities, unfortunately live under the poverty line, whilst here in Europe we still have a chance, or we still have the possibility to raise the standard for craftsmanship and have it duly recognized as luxury, because this is what it is. Craftsmanship is a form of luxury. To enable this idea in Europe, we created another project called Why We Craft, having a vision of craftsmanship for a green and equitable future. And this is a project that provides real-life, immersive co-design experiences with artisans and designers. We would like to invite you to follow the project Why We Craft and what we do at Why We Craft. Together with artisans in Romania, we want to teach designers worldwide to integrate Romanian embroidery techniques in contemporary fashion. And we work in close collaboration with the artisans on the ground to enable cultural sustainability in fashion. I hope I did stick in the time frame, and I also hope I managed to draw your attention to a few interesting issues. Always invited to check our website, culturalintellectualproperty.com, to learn more about the work we do and to access our resources, which we disseminate freely across the world. Our 3 C's Get Weaving campaign is a great place to start from. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this thought-provoking presentation. What a way to actually end the presentation. Fashion industry can become an impact creator. I think that's so important, and it's nice that you highlighted it at the end. I think that making the distinction between tangible and intangible expression is also quite relevant, and because cultural appropriation is such a big topic today. And I think you touched upon so many various elements which are so important for the fashion industry at the moment. Thank you so much. If you want, please share the link of your organization in the chat box. Here, I would also like to address the audience to make questions, to share their comments and to write questions in the chat box so we can actually refer to them. And now I see we have one question from Professor King. Do you want to go with the question or should I read it?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm familiar with this argument, but what I'm curious about is whether designers who take inspiration from the past are guilty, or if it's, and that's distinct really from deliberate theft, when they are deliberately taking it and when they're made aware of it, they're still trying to deny it. In those circumstances, is there a way in which there's an arbitration, as you're suggesting there is, which can move forward? Because I think sometimes from the conversations I've had with designers, when we've talked about this, they say quite honestly, and I understand this, they weren't aware of that.
Thank you, Professor King, for raising this question. It's extremely relevant, especially because we have in the audience, I guess, many professors, many mentors of these designers, correct? So I think the big problem doesn't stem the element of intent. To get to the element of intent, that's a very subjective issue. The problem stems from the lack of educational materials, the lack of integrating cultural sustainability in the educational curricula. I am one of the people who went to fashion school after law school. I went to the the Swedish School of Textile in Borås, and it was evident that there is no element in the curricula that talks about these issues. So we tried to establish a little workshop and to establish awareness and speak about it. So it's important to speak about it. And in time, the difference between inspiration that is borderline plagiarism and inspiration that actually is a reinterpretation of the expression and involves contact with the community will be evident. And this contact with the community is an important source of value and knowledge. So what comes out when you integrate the community in the process, or you go and ask or do the research, where do these expressions come from? When you find them in a library or in a museum, there must be indication that they come from this region or this region. Or so it's a lot about research and kind of going a step further than just simply collating visual imagery and using that as inspiration.
Thank you so much, Monica. We have an interesting comment as well coming from Žarko Koneski. He says inspiration and imitation are both part of innovation. So it's an interesting topic to tackle. Anyhow, thank you so much, Monica. And yesterday with Sveta, we discussed that you are the front runner in copyrights in the Balkans and probably the advocate for some of the fashion professionals we will hear afterwards. I think it's such a relevant topic, and we need to tackle all these issues in the Balkans as well. Thank you very much. Now the next speaker comes from Bulgaria. Viljana Karushkova is the designer who stands behind the fashion brand Sedum. Viljana endeavors to present Sedum as an ambassador of the world of slow and conscious fashion. Today, she will speak about slow fashion as a way of preserving heritage. Welcome, Viljana.
Thank you all. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's okay. Yes.
Can you see the presentation now?
Just a second. Yes, it's okay.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me. It is a really big pleasure and an honor to be a part of this Responsible Fashion Series. As far as we are trying to develop this topic in Bulgaria, it's really important for us to talk a lot about those topics. So I want to begin with a little personal story. I studied here in Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm based here right now, and basically I started my brand because of an invitation that I got from Paris Fashion Week a couple of years ago. since then, since the beginning of the brand, I knew that I wanted to focus in a couple of things that are still part of our philosophy as a slow artisanal fashion, minimalism as a visual story and a way of living, and also merge part of our heritage, time, contemporary design as a way of saying, like, reaching timelessness. For us, I say us because from this year now I have a partner. For the past couple of years I was working completely alone. But for us the most important topic for now is also the identity of the customer and the person who wears our clothing. We want to really put in one level and show the equal importance of the garment and at the same time the personality of the individual, because clothing basically is nothing if it's not worn. I mostly work with colorless palette because yeah, I want to really emphasize the detail, and usually that gets lost with a lot of colors and trends and all the social media and information that we have. And as a conclusion of the philosophy, I really want to say that a brand is a personal world and a personal look for balance. I'm gonna go really fast through a couple of the concepts that I have for the collections, because it's really important the path that I took, and it has grown a lot, and I really want to show people that fashion, it's not only about trendy clothing, and you can really include a lot of different and interesting topics and share with people and get them inspired from what you do. I started with a small project, let's call it. It's called Braille. It's a really capsule collection, and at that time I wanted really to explore clothing as not only a silhouette, but also as the touch of fabric. We really learn to appreciate fabrics when we have the option to choose, and that happens for sure in fashion universities and schools, but for the regular consumer engaging more with visual stuff, it's the priority than touching the texture and experiencing the clothing with their other senses. I really wanted to display the equal importance of the eyesight and the touch when we speak about clothing, because people should consume equally with all their senses, and that way they have a chance to really make a conscious and well-made purchase. This collection was really inspired and focused more on the individual and the urge to remove the false mask and show a true self. As more presentations and collections, a really important topic is the search for a deeper self-knowledge, and not only including our heritage and where we come from. And I think it's really important to really combine and look for options that we have around us, and to construct our brand and our vision, having in mind what we are surrounded by. Syzygy it's a collection that tries to find really a balance between men and women, really the archetypal image in both sexes, and a way to achieve a freedom in clothing. Here we have also inspiration from our heritage, our ways of producing clothing, our ways of dyeing clothing, our ways of constructing and knitting a garment. Here also it's a merge of a free silhouette, a contrast and absence and presence between garments, and really multiple ways of wearing, because that's also a really specific and a really important part of the garment, and I think the costume back then in Bulgaria, and for sure in most of Balkan countries. Developing those topics, I really got interested in the simplicity of collections and trying to seek the subconscious, and then including in a way the sustainability part. The main goal before that was focused really on the conscious personal process and a kind of urge to self-control. And this time, in this case, I talked here more about the sustainable ways of producing clothing. As we all know, in Balkan and Bulgarian culture and costumes, they had really zero waste ways of producing garments with no leftovers or only rectilinear pieces of fabric there, and all of the leftovers that they had, if they had those, were really incorporated in the design. My desire is really to construct a concept that can speak equally about people's individuality, conscious and subconscious, and at the same time bring the focus on topics like timelessness of clothing, slow and artisan fashion, and the use of fabrics. I think fashion really has the power to put on display concepts that are not only speaking about trends, but have involved culture, heritage, the individual, and also his role in our society. Here you have some presentations from different places. And as you can see, there's a similarity of the presentation. So my goal is to really inspire and be the ones who make people think that fashion, it's not only about superficial and trendy, and it has many facets that can be used. And it's a really good tool for making change in our society. Yeah, I have here. I've also worked with theater productions here in Bulgaria, and I think for design it's really important to take part of different projects that are also based on theater, writing, short movies and videos, because it's a really different perspective and it gives you a really good and other point of view. The most important thing that I wanted to share with you today is a project that we're developing with my partner. The project is financed by the Bulgarian National Fund of Culture. The project is called Seraphim, and the heritage part comes from a short story written by a really famous Bulgarian writer called Jordan Yovkov. And the main point I really want to emphasize there, because there are a lot of ways to also involve culture, not only with costumes and fashion, but also with cinema, writing, music, and there are plenty of ways to get inspired. We are preparing this installation in near future, this June. It's a slow fashion installation dedicated mostly to sensitivity in a lot of senses of the word, exploring it from different points of view, where we are going to present 7 garments, emblematic pieces inspired from different cultures, mainly Balkan cultures, as garments are made only from leftovers from different past collections that I released. We're trying to display also the sustainable side of costumes, and that way, the way people used to produce clothing in the past. We want to talk about the perception that people had in the past about their clothing, what they meant, how long each product was part of their lives, the social status of everything they wore, and the production of each. As I mentioned before, a lot of cultures, and especially in Bulgaria, we have a zero waste pattern making in the national costume, and it's really the focus point and the inspiring point of it. Exploring our heritage has shown us that what is the meaning of slow living, slow producing, and slow consuming. People used to live in a totally different way, and we want to make a little comeback to that kind of living, as we experience it, I suppose, most of us during the pandemic, and it's a totally different lifestyle. At the same time, related to sensitivity, we decided we want to work with blind people in this project that can guide us through this small journey in a totally dark space, where we all can sense all pieces only with our hands by touching and hearing the music. And that way we see clothing through different perspective. We do not only consume with our eyes, with the visual. Through this dark space, we would love to open more their senses of people, make them pose themselves questions about topics like slow fashion, consumerism, minimalism, slow living, sustainability in fashion, and many more. It's really important not to give a definitive answer. We're not making this installation to give people an answer, just to make them question how they live, how they want to live, what they want to experience, and how do they want to make their changes. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Liliana. I find your story quite inspiring, and I really like your aesthetics as well, and the way you deconstruct ideas into fashion garments. Thank you so much. And now I see in the chat box that we have Yelena. She has a raised hand. She wants to make a comment. Please, Yelena, the floor is yours.
Hi.
Hi.
I think I will just skip my question and wait till we have. Actually, my question was more to Monica, but that's okay. Let me collect a couple of questions. Thank you. Go ahead with the presentations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So now we are moving on to the next presentation, and I invite Anja Tadic, the founder of the brand Kokoro from Montenegro. Through designing everyday objects, Anja is discovering the touch point of the minimal and intimate in life. Her inspiration comes from the singular culture of Montenegro and Japan. That's a very interesting mix. And I'm glad that we have you with us, Anja. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. So I am Anja from Montenegro. I don't know if everyone here knows much about Montenegro. It's a small Mediterranean country surrounded by mountains and very beautiful. First of all, I would like to thank to Svetlana and to all team for the invitation. I am really happy to be part of this. So today I will present my brand Kokoro. The brand philosophy is minimal and simple. Kokoro is a design studio established in 2017 based in Montenegro. In Japanese, the word Kokoro means the heart and soul. The heart is like the core of things. Kokoro Design Studio is officially dedicating to discovering the touch point of the minimal and intimate in life, and therefore the design of everyday items. Kokoro emerged as a theme that should be my relationship to life. Somehow I concluded that all things need to be simplified to the very hard. In some way, Kokoro tries to unite the cultures of Montenegro and Japan. So Japan and Montenegro are often inspired. Of course, people, special places are often also inspiration. In Montenegrin nature, I really find deep inspiration because I feel that we all have a duty to protect it. Inspiration in nature does not have to be literal. Things don't even have to be redrawn naturally, but that nature is deeply considered and felt, and it is kind of homage to Montenegrin nature that is worth special care and our special and certainly the greatest things we can leave for the future is actually that nature that we inherited. In that sense, the mission of the brand is important because it has a reflex towards that nature, but not that naturalistically, but in the vibrating water, in the twilight behind the Montenegrin mountains, at dusk on the sea horizon, these abstract compositions that are transferred to art objects that are, among other things, leather jacket kimono as a kind of jacket that is both an art and a fashion item. Kokoro is truly dedicated to ordinary things and ordinary human needs and things that surrounded us that should be refined in some peace, quiet, and thought. Kokoro makes small collection with the accent of slow fashion, so every piece is unique, timeless. The bags are handmade. I use a leather whose origin I know. Make bags handles from oak wood, stainless steel, brass, and I cooperate with local craftsmen, carpenters, metal workers whose handles are made by hand. For sewing, I have only one master who also makes everything by hand, and he's from an Italian school. In former Yugoslavia, he has his own store in Sarajevo, but after war, he's come back in Montenegro, and I really had lucky because I met him and I work with him. My special Zen feeling is making origami bags, wallets by my own hand. So that our mode of production is really sustainable. Some bags with specific leather cannot be replicated, so it is made in just one example and is totally unique. And all bags are limited. The collections I make in maximum of 10 copies. Each collection, of course, has its own story in the background, as do the bags. In a way, these are art bags objects. That's how they are conceived. In the last collection, Autumn Heart, I came up with the idea to make jackets, kimonos, from leather that is left over from making bags. Especially interesting is the process when a leather collage is joined, which will turn out. Of course, I think about the colors, the type of leather that will blend, but it's really wonderful to work on this process because sometimes it surprises me what I got as a final work. My biggest inspiration here is also nature, and overlapping images from nature on a kimono is a challenge. I see the close future of Kokoro a lot in making these jackets because it is a kind of sophisticated toga jackets, which is both an art and a fashion item. This design, especially with the authentic creation of motifs, abstract paintings of Montenegrin landscape on it, I believe has a special future. Each jacket made in this spirit is truly unique. The same cannot be repeated. And for the end, today the future is really unpredictable, but I see the future of Kokoro in honest work, hardness work in making still small collections. I see Kokoro like slow working brand, like deep slow river. I see it in supporting artisans and collaborating with various artists. There are some Eastern sayings, hurry up slowly. I think the theme of Kokoro is also similar. Maybe the coronavirus is a warning to the whole world. The world had lost some essence in speed. So now is the ideal opportunity for us all to change that. In the future, Kokoro will remain committed to ordinary things and ordinary human needs and the things that surrounded them that should be ennobled in some peace and pressed to reflect. Yesterday, we conclude that the Balkan is very rich in heritage. I believe that fashion of Balkan in future can be really recognizable. So that is it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. I think what you do is amazing. I especially like the origami bags and the way you translate Montenegro and Japan in a garment is simply amazing. Thank you very much, Anya. So the next presenter comes from Serbia. She is a fashion designer, founder of the brand Neo Design, Neva Nivanovic. Before I introduce you, Neva, I just have one question for you. Do you want us to play the presentation for you, or you will do it? Just a quick question. Nevana?
Hello, everyone. I will try to show it myself, but if anything is not working, please do it for me.
Okay.
I will try to.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So, Ivanovic brings traditional techniques of making clothing and jewelry to a new age in which functionality benefits from the simplicity of the tradition. She will speak about textiles of heritage, collective memory of personal sense of identity. Ivana, welcome. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was amazing, and I'm so glad that I'm here today. I would like to first present myself and a bit about my brand. I am born in Yugoslavia, raised in Serbia and Montenegro. Now I'm living in Serbia, so traveling without moving is actually my passion, but without any knowing of it. Today I will try to show you what stands behind my brand, why do Neo actually exist, and what moves me to make and create. Um, I graduated twice, and that is very interesting. My schooling actually shaped my visions, and I think it's very important that I had the chance to graduate twice, so that I had double time to explore. As we know that in fashion schools, you actually have the most of the time to research, and after that, when it becomes business, then the lack of time changed everything. I graduated first at 2014, and that's when Neo Design was born. After that, I graduated in 2016 from Faculty of Art and Design in Belgrade. I made the first collection of Neo Design called Enso Neo, and that collection changed my whole life, and everything started then. In the course of through the course of 7 years, from 2014 till today, I created over 14 collections and smaller projects and interesting things that I made alone or with other creatives, because I think that cooperation is something that actually changes the way you think and changes the course of design thinking. I also won over 18 awards, prizes, and nominations in Serbia, Europe, and in the world. And I proudly presented my country and the Balkans over 30 times on multiple projects and happenings around the world. Here you can see a bits and bytes of my collections, of my works, and it would be really a long presentation if I could show you everything I did in the past 7 years. But I will try today to talk about what stands behind all of these collections, not one by one, and because the center of it is the same. Firstly, I would like to talk about inspiration as an intuitive guide through the paths of the past. That is how I call the thing. Firstly, when I try to make all of my collections, every professor asks you about your inspiration, and you're like, okay, I need to find something that inspires me. So I digged a lot. I dig through the internet, books, movies, music, everything that surrounded me. And I realized that some things are attractive to me and the others are not. So those attractive ones became my inspiration and became part of the group of the things of collages that I made that inspired me actually to make real clothes. So I realized that inspiration has to have something in its origin, something that is connecting all of the parts, and why this is inspiring to me and why the other thing is not. Something has there has to be an answer about it. So I searched and I realized that I'm mostly attracted to the things from the past. From my past, from past of other people, those old ancient stories were things that attracted my attention. Mostly there were different types of clothing, traditional clothing of many different people. So I collected all of those things and realized that my inspiration could be inspired and driven from my DNA. So I decided to make a lifetime project or project that has some that will last till I feel it's done. So I realized that if I follow my inspiration and I map it, I could probably make some sort of a map where probably my origin comes from. So I started doing it, and I'm sorry that in my presentation somehow I deleted it, but I left the red dots where my inspiration already took me, and it's mostly Japan, Central Europe, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, then Bulgaria, Albania, Greece. Sometimes I'm going to Mongolia, to China, and right now I'm here. That's my map, but I will try to develop and to work and to follow my inspiration, map it all around the world, and working on collections that are inspired by those parts of the world. And then in the end, well, when I feel that I'm done with it, and when I feel that I explored all of the things that attracted me, I will do the real DNA test and compare it to the map I already made. I really cannot wait to do so. Some of my friends actually suggested that I can do the test now, but I don't want to know in advance. I want to follow the inner instinct and see if it's really something that works. So that's the experiment, and I'm really looking forward to see the results, and I really don't know when it will be, but I'm looking forward to the journey. As it will be super interesting as it's now. The other thing that I realized through my experiment and my creating is that craftsmanship around the world is a kind of unique language that we all understand. When you meet a person who is making tapestries or doing the embroidery from their own country, you realize that if you repeat the same, you're talking the same language. You actually understand the language of art, of craft, of you don't need words there. You just need to communicate with pictures, and all of those things that we make by hands actually connects us. And that is very interesting for me because I'm using techniques from all over the world. I'm trying to recreate things in that techniques and to develop them and change them. I developed a specific technique that is a very representative of my brand, and it's the technique of connecting ropes by hand. I know that similar techniques exist around the world. The one actually exists in Serbian tradition, but I made a different way of doing it, and actually I can create pictures that are symmetric or asymmetric or however I want it. I just follow the drawings, and I can when I connect them by hand and the thread, they stay as a timeless piece of clothing made from actually very cheap material. And that takes me to the another story. This photo represents a costume from my latest collection, and you guys are actually the first ones to see those photos. I'm proud to present it and to tell you a story about Japanese zodiac that was inspiration behind the whole collection. And the costume you see on the photo is costume of a monkey. But the interesting part of this costume is actually this top made out of very unusual material. Actually, through my process, I mostly use the ropes and different kind of threads and things because I love that line that flows and makes different shapes. In that process where I use ropes, sometimes I try to pull out the middle part of the thread so I can make it softer and lighter so that I can work with it easier. And one day when I was doing that with some very cheap rope from Chinese dollar store, I realized that the entrance of it, not the entrance, sorry, but the core of it was white and very soft. And I realized that I will throw it away, but I needed something to create that fur looking like top. So I tried to use that thing that would be trash in another way, and to work with it and cut it and make small knots on the base, and that's how I created this top. So I realized that something that is actually trash, very cheap, something that will end on the landfill, can be used to create something beautiful and something very luxurious, because I believe that value of the craft is definitely something that is more than value of the material itself. We can work with expensive materials, with silk, with gold, with leather, with whatever it's expensive now, but that is just an expensive material. What gives a value to it is what we do. So here is the material that is super cheap, created used with the knowledge and with passion, and there is a piece created that is very expensive, because I think that we four of us who created this top, people that work with me in my studio, we used over 200 hours to make this top, and that is actually the value of the things. And this also leads me to another thing that I want to share with you. I believe in things made by human beings for another human beings. I would like to change the fashion industry and to show the people behind the brands, people who make your clothes, who make the fabric, who have those ideas, people who change the world actually. And it's very in today when we are because of the current situation with coronavirus, we're missing the touch most. Touch is something that is very necessary for human being to feel loved, to feel secure, to feel safe, and that is what we miss now the most. I'm trying to hug people through my clothes. I'm trying to give them the touch, the love, the experience. I want to make them feel something different. I want to make them feel loved and accepted in this very, very weird moment in time. And that is very holistic approach to fashion and to clothing. But another important thing is that we have to think about what surrounds us, where is it going, how we can make it better for ourselves, for other people. We as creators are the one responsible for the image and for the feelings of people around us, because we can change them. We can change the world with what we do, and that is the power of art, of design, of creative thinking actually. The idea behind the neo design is that we can use something that is left around us to create something totally new. I grew up on my father's workplace, and he's actually a collector of trash, but it's not really a trash. I cannot find the real world, but he's collecting different metals, different kind of materials that people are throwing away. They are recycling it, selling it over again. And I was surrounded by other people's trash for all my life, but I was always inspired by it, and I made so many different things in my collections out of other people's trash. And I think it's very important that it's not visible when you look at when you first look at it, but when you think about it and when you see the details, you realize that it's something from your surrounding and it's made into something totally new. I think that power of design and that power, a power that we designers have in our hands, is to give life to already dead things. That is the most important thing that I wanted to say today, and I wanted to inspire my colleagues to do so, and people who are wearing fashion to think about it as something that always has another life in front of it. I think that as energy is endless, that is same with any other resource, because energy will make it alive, and energy that we spread through the things that we make and that we believe into is something that will make the world turn around. Also, the important thing that I wanted to say today is what you leave behind is your legacy or your trash. Make a wise choice. it's really just your choice, and it will really make an impact. I believe so, I work so, I live so, and that's the most important thing I wanted to say today. Everything else is just your choice and just your way, and please be kind to our surrounding and our planet. We have just one for us. So thank you for today. Thank you for being here and for listening. I'm so glad I had a chance to say all of this to you guys, and you all were amazing. And I'm here to hear your questions if you have it, and to talk about this further.
Thank you so much, Nevana. I think holistic is the word that encapsulates what we can do to change the world. And collections inspired from an experimental DNA test sounds amazing. Can't wait to see them, actually. And I know we are happy that we have you as a representative for Balkan fashion in the world. Thank you so much, Nevana.
You're welcome. See you.
Thank you. I just want to ask the audience again and all the participants to write question comments in the chat box. We will address them shortly after the next two presentations. And the next speaker is a women's wear slow fashion designer from Croatia. Behind the design of Marija Kulušić, there is always a story around. Her attention is especially focused on sophisticated hand-finished details and delicate fabric techniques. Marija will speak about slow fashion practices today. Hi, Marija.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me and inviting me.
Thank you for being here. I just have one question. Do you want us to play the presentation for you, or will you do it yourself?
Yes, you can play it. It's safer maybe that way. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. You can just say next slide and you can just guide us through the presentation, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to share my story through slow fashion practices because I started using them through my collection. Marija Kulušić is a women's wear slow fashion focused on responsible and timeless design, and it always has that element of surprise. I wanted to make luxurious garments, but always with a story behind, the unexpected story. It is sometimes dyeing with natural fabrics, using deadstock or antique fabrics, etc. Also, I find that I start each collection with what intrigues me. It can be a life experience or maybe my, I don't know, art form, people around me. I started this story by winning a regional competition for young designers in Croatia, LIFT, and it got me the opportunity to present myself through Croatian Fashion Week. After a few seasons, I actually realized I don't want to do it that way. It doesn't do it for me because it was too fast. I wasn't really satisfied with it because I didn't have much time to actually research for my collection. So I decided to quit that whole fashion week and started to do things on my own with a slower pace. And now I do 1 or 2 collections per year. I was really becoming interested in the idea of slow fashion. And in 2016, with my collection later on, I started actually practicing those slow fashion ideas through my work. I was already using natural fabrics in my collection, and then I started with recycled fabrics. I started dyeing fabrics by my own. Here we have some collections that I was working on with slow fashion practices. In this It Fell Apart collection, I actually started dyeing with natural dye. It was a very intimate process because there were plants that were found near my house, near meadows around my family home, and I did it all by myself. I dyed with natural dye, and I created a natural print with rust. It is this one on the picture. It fell apart, the second picture. And through that collection, I wanted to make that kind of lost lost bond with nature and man, people. So I actually wanted to make a bond through this textile by connecting nature with something that we wear in this process of dyeing it and doing it with natural dye. Also in this individual manner collection, I went on more with this slow fashion practices. I started using hand techniques that really require more time. The hand smoking that really requires time, and dyeing fabrics all by myself with plants. Here in the picture we have that example. The silk was dyed with plants. And later on, in the latest actual collection Inside, I went further with using upcycled garments. That was the first time I actually used them in my work. Here you see this garment coat made from upcycled fabric. It is very well known in our region, in Balkan region. It is that we call it deka. You can find it almost in every household in Croatia and in Balkan region. I wanted to make something for this actual collection that is really from this spaces. It's kind of our heritage, and it was pandemic, so I really wanted to use something that was really around me, that I can really associate myself with. So I actually wanted to use that you can find in every household. With this, I also used antique fibers. Here in the second photo, it's hemp and linen found in Croatia in Zagorje County. I used it for my skirt in the collection that I hand pleated. I actually wanted to make a reference with Croatian national costume, folkloric costume. So I wanted to make the hand pleating by my own. That requires a bit more time. Also, we started using leather that was waste leather, leftover leather from food industry. So that was one way to incorporate it through our collection. And with accessorize, I also used these blankets that were upcycled. And in bags, I used filling that was made from recycled bottles. So there are really many ways in which this process can be sustainable. And it was very intimate kind of for me, because I used all that I found in my surrounding, actually. Here you can see the example of accessories. And I think these practices are being more and more recognized. I see it in my work. This region has a really lot to offer in terms of heritage and in these hand techniques and folkloric costumes. And it is being recognized. I can see it for my work in the latest collection. Here you can see an example of pleating by hand and dyeing with natural dye. I see it in my collection because this latest collection that I really use these slow fashion practices got me awards on regional scale and on international scale, and got me a scholarship. So it's really being recognized, and people are curious about it. They want to know about it. They want to participate in preserving their heritage. So I think it really has a great impact on people. Yeah. That is mainly what I wanted to say about the collections. I wanted to actually say what you can do about it. So you can buy lessons as well, as you see, and you must read your label to see what you are buying, who made it, how was it made, and by caring for your items you can preserve them. They can last a really long time. So that is something that you can do. It is a minimal effort. And I wanted to thank you all for listening to me. If you have any questions, you can contact me through my mail or info email or web address. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. That was a very attention-grabbing presentation. Thank you for being with us today. And shortly after the next presentation, we will have a Q&A session. Thank you. So last speaker for this session is the Macedonian fashion designer, Nikola Eftimov. He's a professor at the International Fashion Institute Izet Suri and a mentor at the Fashion Academy Jolaf and the Arts. His presentation for today has a very interesting topic, living and teaching without preaching, conscious lifestyle and fashion design. Nikola, welcome on the virtual floor today.
Thank you very much. First of all, because maybe I will not have a chance to say later, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me here. All the guests were very inspiring, so even I had a migraine yesterday, I was quite uplifted and quite happy. Another thing that I would like to say is that I don't know, this is not going to be some academic lecture. I will try to share some of my personal experience, both in teaching and as a designer. And last thing, I never rehearse for my lectures, but because we have only 10 minutes to go, last night I tried to, and I never succeeded to enter the frame of 10 minutes. So please bear with me. I will try to explain the first slides with few lines, then we will go through the others very quickly so I can wrap up everything. Okay. Basically, I started to the whole business of reuse, redesign old clothes in my early youth. It was the way for me to, let's say, enrich my personal wardrobe, to, let's say, make more personal touch on the things that I was wearing, but also it was a great experience for me to learn the stuff, because by dissecting the things, by cutting the things, I learned what is inside, how the things were made. I call these slides like fragments of my lifestyle, because I think that whatever we do, we are all different creatures, we are all different people. Things that are that form me very much is the attention in like taking care of animals. That's why I became vegan. I started my own vegan blog on Facebook where I share my experiences. I made about plants, but also I tried to implement some of the things I believe as a designer, even in my living space. For example, these are a few photos of my living space in my early 20s and in my 30s, when I considered my living space sort of like 3D mood board or 3D inspirational board, but I try to apply the same methods of working even in my living space. I never used, let's say, industrial furniture. I always made changes, and later on that attitude softened a bit when I was trying to research even more industrial products. Okay, can we go on the next slide, please? Okay, a great part of my career is also teaching. It spans over decades, and it was not only valuable experience, also as sharing my knowledge or experience to the students, but also the opportunity to learn, because I think that we learn a lot from our students, and especially when I was able to teach abroad, for example, in Thailand, but also teaching in very international settings like I'm doing at the moment. Can we go on the next slide, please? I was always curious about the part of the fashion which is communication. Sometimes I use direct literary communication with written words, but sometimes I use that in the most subtle way, using symbols, colors, moods, etc. Can we go on the next slide? Okay, whatever I was doing in my life, whether they were objects for exhibitions or I was doing wearable clothes, I have always incorporated the idea of recycle, upcycle, reuse of the materials. For example, these are series of corsets made in 2000 when I tried to merge sort of experience of fashion and also visual art, especially the part of the painting techniques. All these objects were created with leftovers, with literary wrecks, old wrecks, and pieces of jeans. But whatever I was doing, I was trying to incorporate that experiment in my next project. Okay, another way of using, let's say, the whole idea of reuse was connected also with the long, many years of collaboration with the fashion journalist Tani. She invited me to give her clothes for her TV programs, and because the whole project lasted for many years, at the end I ended up like reusing or upcycling things. For example, the dress was made of old shirt. The jacket on the lower slide is made of old male jackets with original pattern from 1960s. Okay, can we go on the next one? Even in doing some of the commercial collections for some design studios like Fiafi in this case, sometimes even I was forced to do with leftovers because this specific firm didn't have a big budget at the time. So I created a collection literally of leftovers from their previous collections, and it turned to be quite successful on the market. Can we go on the next one? Then this invitation to participate in curatorial conference came from main curator. I was invited to be some sort of, let's say, entertainment and to loosen up all those like heavy theoretical discussions. The curator provided me with the text. It was Irit Rugov's text, like what to wear on exhibition, opening of the exhibition. But I didn't want to make literary translation of the text or like say visual illustration. Rather, I decided to create work. Maybe we can go on the next slide. To work with the idea of the reduction, starting from existing piece of clothing and cutting off pieces, and in that way creating my own, let's say, letters, even my own alphabet, and by making different looks, different stylings to create even my words that express my own feelings or express different type of personalities. Can we go on the next slide? Also, this project allowed me to work with different textures. For example, on the left, you can see a shoulder pad, which was first embroidered by hand and by machine. Or on the left, you can see sort of abstract lace that I created with yarn. All these things were combined in the different ways. For example, the head shoulder became a head in one of the looks. Okay, can we go next? And then I always try to follow my instincts, as many of the other speakers already said. And at one point, one friend of mine inherited some old pieces from his great grandmother. It was an old corset that he gave me to restore, but also old silk pillows that were almost completely destroyed. I'd asked him what he would like to be the future of those pillows. He told me that they will go under the glass. So when I opened, I found the original feeling with raw cotton. For me, it was a real gold. And then I said, no, I will wait for the proper moment to use it. And on the next slide, we can see how I use that raw cotton, please. Yes, that moment came when, in a specific emotional situation, I decided to make this collection. With the raw cotton, I made some sort of raw yarns. Then I stitched them on the surface of the fabric. Then I boiled them, and I achieved not only the beautiful texture, but a very rigid one that allowed me to create those jackets without even inside layers. Another photos that demonstrate like the whole idea of reuse. For example, the central jacket is created from leftovers of denim, hand painted. The one on the left is a shirt, on the right, sorry, is a shirt made of old male shirt with open work. Then some, let's say, real life situation of my clothes living in different places on the earth, for example, in Sydney. On the top right, and a few of the examples of handmade accessories, which were made with embroidery, with hand painting, or even this sort of adult dolls that were created together with my then assistant Alexandra Jovanovska. Can we go on the next one? Okay, and this is the collection that I really liked. It happened in one very specific period of my time, of my life. In 2011, I spoke with Sveta for participating in the fashion weekend. And then suddenly in that summer, my mother died. And of course, it was quite shocking experience for me and very painful, but it also helped me to rethink the whole idea of the recycling. And for me, the recycling is not only recycle of material things, but we also recycle our thoughts or our ideas. Okay. The store. The store was the place where I was offering my seasonal collections, but also the store was the place where I can continue with my practice of experimenting and working on unique orders made by measure, but also on many styling projects. For example, the hat you see was created for the audience with the Queen Elizabeth II. It was done from out of very old and ugly head that I cut into pieces and completely redone. Okay, can we go on the next one? Yeah, and now we can, let's say, go faster just to see different collections that I was working with this approach of reuse, because we will not have time to go through every slide in depth. For example, this collection was called Family Reunion. The idea was like family members gathering together, then open the closet and then making their own looks, but allowed me to experiment further with different textures and hand dyeing techniques. Okay, the next one. Usually in the mid of the season, apart from the seasonal collections, I would do another small collections, most of them based again on the idea of reuse of old pieces of clothes or leftovers, etc. They included a large amount of handwork. Okay, another seasonal collection. Many times again, the idea of communicating. So we have the T-shirt like "Stop Brown Nosing." Next one. Yes, another seasonal collection with incorporated elements of reuse. For example, the belts were created from the fabrics that were intended for making the furniture, or the jacket on the top was created with old colored pairs of jeans. The same with the vest. again, in all these seasonal collections, I try to incorporate what I learned. Another stylistic exercise, for example, this dress was the second-hand dress that I first decolored and then colored again and then hand painted. And I'm quite happy it has a very nice life afterwards. Okay, can we go on the next one? Another example of hand dyeing and hand painting on the garment. We can go on. And then the whole idea of upcycling, reuse, etc., was not done per se. Also, many times it was done for the humanitarian projects. Like in this case, we were invited to make fashion show with retouched clothes, but the main purpose was like to stimulate the gathering of old clothes and donations for those who are in need. Further examples of recycling. Okay, we can go on the next one. And then my atelier works also allowed me to really become very, very slow. Sometimes in the projects that span over months, I would use the machine, I don't know, 45 minutes, and the rest was done by hand. The wedding dress on the bottom, the top was made of leftovers of old laces, more than 50 pieces, separate pieces, joined by hand. We have also the example of hand paint, but also the incorporation of more traditional embroidery. The same approach I had also in the costume design, especially in the project that I was very fond of, working with good teams in theater, good directors. And whenever they would have a problem with the budget, I would start to cut some old pieces. For example, the costume that we see here is made of old bed covering that belonged to my grandmother. The front piece is hand painted. Okay, I call this slide popular collaborations, and many of the designers maybe they will roll their eyes because it includes collaboration with the firms like Redbubble. And maybe it's on the edge of amateurism because anyone can make a profile there and let's say submit the designs. But for me, it was in a way sign that something is very wrong with the official fashion system when this sort of offer on the market exists and is working very well. But another thing that drives me here was learning the entire structure of how they function, because they do not produce products like on stock. Every piece is uniquely produced after the order is received. And I also like their ethical policies, which include like transparency, where the materials come from, the way the transportation is organized, how the production is organized, etc. Can we go on the next one?
Nico, I'm sorry to interfere, but we need to wrap up and finalize.
Okay, I will be very quick.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. I will finish with my teaching experience. As I said before, I spent 1 year in Bangkok teaching to my mostly Thai students, and that gave me the opportunity, let's say, to mentor their works, but also to collaborate with the local NGOs, which working with old traditional embroideries. Then the Accademia Italiana happened in Skopje, and many of the projects were done in this way. I was also a mentor to many graduate projects, like in this case, where we have even a thesis written about the industrial waste and can we use it as, let's say, a valuable source for creating new designs. I have only 2 slides left, I think. Yeah, then the International Fashion Institute is at Zurich, which is very famous for the moulage techniques, thanks to the Mr. Izatsuri with 40 years of experience in haute couture, but also with many projects connected with reuse and recycle. Can we go on the next one? I guess, yes, this is the some of the experiences with the Jolef and the arts that included reuse of old clothes and making new ones. At the end, some of the most valuable things in my life were, as I said before, collaborating with the Fashion Week in Skopje, where my aesthetics can be, let's say, became visible. Then participation in many international conferences. And at the end, I would like to finish with maybe a question. We are obviously very passionate about the things that we are doing. We will continue to educate ourselves throughout our lives, educate the customers, educate our students. But although I'm not, let's say, for radical movement, my question is whether this whole idea can become even more radical, because even as we speak at this moment, tons of polyester fabrics are produced. Tons of garbage is left over in the fields, etc. Isn't the time even to include in this movement maybe lawmakers and to, let's say, try to limit even the production of harmful materials in fashion? Thank you very much, and thank you for being patient.
Thank you, Nicola. You ended with a remarkable point. I'm sure that some of the guest speakers will address it now in the Q&A section. So thank you for your presentation and for sharing just a segment of your persona with us. It was an emotional encounter with your work, actually. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So now it's time for questions, and let me check if we have some comments and questions in the chat box. Thank you. I want to thank all the guest participants, all the guest speakers today for their inspiring presentations. And also thank you for sharing your websites and your social media. I think it's the best way that you can communicate with each other and with all the participants in our today's session. So I know that at the beginning we had some comments. I think it was Yelena that wanted to ask some questions for the guest participants. Yelena, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. A comment or maybe a nice inspiring. I was also very much, again, as you said, inspired by her presentation. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. I maybe I can turn on the camera. I don't know if I can turn on the camera. Yeah.
Now we can't hear you. Yelena, maybe you switched off your mic. Hello, Yelena? We can hear you now.
There is a place.
Some technical difficulty. Is your mic? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Christina, can you hear me? I don't see Christina. I don't know. Can you hear me? Christina, let me know because I can see you. Just give me a signal. No?
Yelena, we can hear you. You can talk.
Please proceed.
Excellent.
We can hear you.
Yeah, excellent. So did you hear the first part of my story, or shall I repeat it again?
Please repeat
it shortly. You can summarize it for the ones who were not present yesterday.
Yeah, it's just something else. It's more, so to say, a question or maybe a nice example to Monica, that near the place where I live, there is a beautiful fabric, Flesko fabric, one of the oldest one, where they use wax cotton. And they use prints from different African countries and different regions of Africa. But it's very interesting, you know, they're usually giving it as examples of, so to say, cultural appropriation in a positive way. What happened? A Dutch commerçant more than 100 years ago, he brought a batik technique, a special way of indigo and dyeing from Indonesia to the Netherlands. So, and then he went to Africa and, so to say, sell it or presented it to African customers. So it's very interesting case because nowadays this fabric is very known, and they patented, they have this copyright for wax cotton. So basically they are producing it in the Netherlands, only materials, fabric, and selling it to African countries. So it's interesting. So they kind of culturally expropriated the prints. They introduced the indigo batik from Indonesia, but still, so to say, there were no claims of cultural expropriation, etc., etc. So I think it's a very, maybe it's a question or comment to Monica. I mean, how beautifully it can be used, that, you know, that still different African tribes, textiles and patterns are visible in contemporary design. You know, everybody's happy about that. I don't know if Monica is here and she can maybe comment if she had this kind of similar story before. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Monica, are you with us? We're just waiting. Okay, I have just one positive comment. It's from Kirsten Scott. She was a speaker yesterday. She had a very interesting presentation. She says that it's really great to see the work of these talented designers. And while we are waiting for Monica, I don't know if she's here. I have questions for the rest of the guest speakers. I will start with Nicola Evtimov because he was the last to speak today. So, Nicola, Slow Fashion asks us to simplify our wardrobe and focus on timelessness, core pieces that can rotate seasonally for years. But high quality, sustainable clothing often costs more. How to attract and convince the consumer of each generation actually to become sustainable fashionista? Is there a way to do that?
Well, I don't know one recipe because I don't know. Probably if we know it, we wouldn't be here. But I think it's a slow process of education and repeating the story. And I think that we live in over-consumer society when part of our personal success was linked to the idea of constant buying, and buying make us happy. But when we let's say, continue in our process of educating people where the material came from, how it was made, whether it included child slavery even, or child labor, or I don't know, using harmful materials, etc. I think that in each of us deeply as a human beings, there is some spark of humanity and righteousness. So it's a long process of education. And I think that slowly we can change those habits. I don't see any other way, because we cannot change the personal style by law. It's a personal choice.
Of course, it's a long process, but let's hope that we'll get there. Okay, thank you, Nicola. My next question goes to Neva Nivanovic. You had a very interesting presentation. You mix tradition and future, which is very interesting. And you often find inspiration in cultures or nations, dreams, new technologies, even inspiring DNAs. What is your vision of the new world? How can fashion become a uniting force between communities?
Definitely the way that I'm working is that I'm trying to wake up those parts of ourselves that are belonging to some other culture or that are inspired by it. And I think that exchange of the things can really build a greater community. Like if we feel other people and if we feel their origins, I think that connects us. And it's very interesting to do the cultural exchange projects with people. I would really love to see people from Japan doing something inspired by Serbian tradition, as I am doing something inspired by Japanese tradition. And I would really, for example, love to travel to Japan. I've never been there. And most of my work is based on their aesthetic or philosophy or tradition. So I would really love to go there, see it live, not to travel just in my mind, but to travel physically there, to meet people from there, to talk with them about their tradition and their visions of it. Because sometimes we don't see our own tradition as something interesting enough, something it's taken for granted, you know, like it's ours and that's it. And we do not care enough about it. So when people from other parts of the world care about our own culture, that wakes us up. And I think that is very important to talk with people around the world, to exchange those experiences, and to sometimes other people can show you the beauty in your own surrounding. And if we build upon the beauty, and if we create new things inspired by other people's tradition, I think that we are building a world that is more inclusive, more open to others, more beautiful in the end, because the mixing of it, as the mixing of DNAs and genes and everything, it makes another new beautiful things. So we have to work on it and to enjoy the process of meeting other cultures and developing them, and actually making a great diverse scene for design and art.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it really encapsulates what we want to see in fashion and which changes we want to see there. And as I said previously, I can't wait to see your collection inspired from DNA. I can't wait to see
my collection is inspired by it, and it will go one by one till I feel it's done. Yeah.
Of course, it's a process, but please share it with us afterwards.
I will feel to do so.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next question goes to Anja Tadic. You work unique handmade products, sustainable sourcing of materials. In your case, it's leather, wood, and metal, is one key aspect for each responsible designer, especially here in the Balkans. How do you overcome this challenge as a young designer?
So I don't know. I use leather because I think that I can find some beautiful colors in it, and because I can make by myself something with it, and because of that I use leather. And this my new project, kimono leather jacket, I think that really now can be some good art object. So that is it. I don't know what to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I see that Jelena has one question for Nevana.
I also have a technical challenge. I cannot switch on my camera. Is it possible to switch my camera? The mic is there. I don't know. Somehow I'm switching. I cannot.
to do it from here?
I cannot switch. Turn camera on, but I cannot hear from, at least from my side, no?
We will try if we can work from here. Let's try. Okay. I don't think it will be possible. So is it okay to pose the question like this without the camera? But we will try to fix it if there is an opportunity to do it from here. Yelena? Yelena, are you with us? If not, I have another question coming from Juliana Karushkova. She asks, do you think that mixing cultures and getting inspired from a lot of them will lead us at some point to losing our identity? As now we have access to a lot of information. I think you addressed the question. Who do you want to address the question to? Juliana? Okay, I don't know if I can.
I suppose to whoever wants to respond to this, because we all speak about our heritage and inspiration from our past, so it's a general question.
I felt invited to answer it because I was talking about the mixing. I think that we are already a mixture of cultures, that our identities are not one-sided and that they are not clean as we maybe would like it to be. I already feel that I belong to many different cultures, so the mixture of it is actually my own identity. So that's mostly the answer to this question.
Thank you, Nevana. I have a question for Maria Kulisic. You produce your designs on a made-to-order basis, meaning there is a particular intimacy created between you and your consumer. How hard is to achieve this in the digital era, and how to endure?
I see people getting more and more interested in this idea of slow fashion. They are really interested in knowing about the item, knowing about the story behind it. They really want to know about the process. So people are really getting more and more involved with it. The main issue is the price of slow fashion. It is very expensive, and it is not for all the people because of the price. But we have to kind of inspire people to really want to know more about it, to change their minds in the way that they think about what they are buying and how was it made and where was it made. So they have to change their mindset into believing that they're buying better, but not buying quantity, but buying quality over quantity. So I think these things are changing slowly. But we, as I said, we have to change their mindset in some way to change their habits. So I see some potential here, and it is changing, but very slowly for now.
Thank you, Maria. It's a long process, but I hope we'll get there. And I guess the holistic approach would be the right way to change this, to change the narrative. I don't know if we have Monica back with us, because I had one question for her. If not, we can. I can address it in the last Q&A session after the second part. If not, I think it's time to wrap up this session. We heard so many interesting presentations. I know we're a bit behind time, but I hope you enjoyed the presentations, and it was an interesting discussion between the designers, and I hope you will stay with us. We will have a short break of 10 minutes, and we are looking forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time to start the last session for today. It's the 5th session or the 2nd session today. It was really hard to encapsulate one topic for this session, because we have many speakers with diverse and eclectic backgrounds. The umbrella topic of the section is holistic approach to the traditional values in fashion and crafts with a modern twist. We touch upon holistic approach again because we already talked about it during the first session. Juxtaposing traditional heritage and techniques with technology and durability is another topic we will talk about, and then the prominence of preservation, revitalization, and progress in both fashion and crafts. Jan, are you with us? Hello? Okay. If not,
yeah, sorry.
Here? Okay, perfect,
yeah.
perfect. Would you like to add something more regarding this session?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, as I said before in the first session, I think holistic fashion in the Balkans is the future. And I'd be very interested to see what the response will be at this present time, because I think what I would say that I would be critical about the first session, and I'm going to be provocative here, is that to some extent I see more of the same. And what I'm looking for, I think the fashion world is looking for, is something new, and therefore something where the Balkans can actually offer something different. Because I have to be honest, I have seen hundreds of fashion designers over the course of my career, and they're very good, all very passionate, all have a real desire to offer something. But what we need in fashion now is something different. And I'm looking for the Balkans who can step in and offer something different, because this is the opportunity. The time is now for the Balkans to step up. So I'd be interesting to see in this last session how you're going to step up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan. I think you are, right with everything that you said. Actually, we need something new, and maybe this is an opportunity for the Balkans to emerge. And as you said, we don't have much time. The time is actually now. So the first session today, we will start with Milica Terzic. She is the assistant coordinator at Ethno Network, which is an umbrella association of artisans from Serbia. Milica will speak about Serbian tradition with a modern twist. Welcome, Milica.
Hello, Christina. Thank you for inviting us. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Milica, and I'm here on behalf of Ethno Network from Belgrade, Serbia. Our presentation, like Christina said, is called the Serbian Tradition with a Modern Twist, as we are trying to bring tradition closer to young people through contemporary creation, using tradition about organization activities, and then talk about exhibitions. We were established in May 2005, and Ethno Network has grown into a leading membership umbrella association of artisans from all over Serbia, organized in associations engaged in the production of handicrafts using traditional techniques. Ethno Network aims to preserve traditional heritage through economic empowerment of women and young people for the market production of handicrafts. Ethno Network advocates for the economic heritage is used as an important element of local development, and our handicrafts are used by protocol of the government and state institutions as business and diplomatic gifts. So our main activities are providing support to artisans, organizing key annual activities, and getting visibility. We organize trainings about different topics like design and packaging, sales and media promotion, online shopping, also workshops for children. And we also organize annual activities. We can go on next slide. And these annual activities are recognized as valuable kind of support, like exhibition of miniatures called 100 Women, 100 Miniatures, when women make miniatures with traditional motifs, and the best pieces get a money prize. Also, we organize weaving colonies and standardized trainings in different techniques. So far, we have organized colonies in weaving, and this year, for the first time, in felting. Yes, we can go on other slides to see some more photos of our activities. We also work on getting visibility of artisans by organizing different activities that will gather media and VIP guests. Now we can see some of our handicrafts. In our offer, we have handmade products for various purposes, from souvenirs to clothes and accessory. All our products are made of natural materials, mainly wool and cotton, because we want our products to be eco-friendly, in addition to being handmade. We can go next slide. We chose some photos of our products, and this is just a part of them. We thought you would like them because they concern fashion directly. So these are some agendas, cell phone cases, laptop cases that are used as diplomatic gifts. Also, we have some clothing and accessory elements like bracelets for men and female. And then we have some accessory like this. No, you can go next slide. Like these purses with the traditional motifs, and they are woven and embroidered. Also, we have now we chose some gloves, so you can see them on next slide, and different scarves. Also, we think that fashion shows are an important way to get visible, and so far we organized several exhibitions in different cities. We can go next slide. This one is our exhibition in train called Romantica, or Romance in English. It was specific as it was held in train that travels 3 hours from Belgrade to Vršac. It's a city in northern part of Serbia. 2 fashion shows were held by Aphrodite Mode Collection and Ethno Network in collaboration with the local designer Jelena Nikolic. And we presented romantic white dresses in a wedding gown style, ornamented with unique, colorful, and white lace embroidery. Next, we have a fashion show in Chicago that was held in 2006. It was a 2-day exhibition of Serbian handicrafts with a fashion show in the end. It attracted a lot of people as there are many Serbs in Chicago, so they could feel part of Serbia on beautiful dresses with traditional motifs. Next is exhibition in Vukovar. It was prepared with a careful selection of unique handmade exhibits from all over Serbia, including knitted socks, hats, and gloves with authentic Vlah embroidery, rugs, bookmarks, greeting cards, wine bags, handbags, scarves, with the motif of Serbian fabric and details from our rich tradition that new generations have almost no opportunity to see, except in museums and folklore events. Communication through motifs that are close to all visitors and cultural exchange proved to be the most effective way to bridge the gap and build understanding, respect, and good neighborly programs. Last one, but not least, the exhibition Tradition at Our Fingertips was held in Belgrade as a result of cooperation with our famous fashion designer Bata Spasojevic. Enthusiastic about the design and production of traditional handicrafts produced by women from all over Serbia, he decided to use certain motifs for his collection for Belgrade Fashion Week. This collection was inspired by folk costumes and folk motifs, but packed into contemporary story. Some people have prejudice when it comes to folklore, especially ours, and it is common belief that, for example, folk costumes must look strict and be worn only in cultural and artistic societies and on similar stages. And this exhibition showed people how these models can be very modern, wearable, interesting, and chic. Here you can see our key initiatives for this year, as we hope it would be better than the last one. If you have any more questions, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and we have online shop on Etsy. And we hope to hear from you. So this was a brief presentation, and I'm open to all questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milica. Very interesting points. You can share the links in the chat box so the audience can see the information or contact you directly as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you as well. Before we continue, I want to encourage the audience to post questions again. Write them in the chat box. It is a great opportunity to reflect on what Professor King said in the beginning and to start an open discussion whether the Balkan has the holy grail for changes in fashion. So please write your comments and your questions, and we will address them in the Q&A session. Now I see that we have some questions, but we will address them later during the Q&A session. And with us now is Hanna Zeka. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. I'm not sure. She's the founder of the slow fashion design studio, Fight or Flight in Kosovo. She's developing fashion tech garments and producing everyday wear. And Hanna will speak about fashion future and technology. Hi, Hanna. Please take the virtual floor.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. It's a really great opportunity to be here today. And I'm so glad that I have met virtually so many designers from neighboring countries. I just want to make sure that you can see my presentation. Is it okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
Great. So I would like to start by introducing Fight or Flight, which is a fashion studio based in Pristina, in Kosovo, developing fashion technology prototype garments and slow fashion for everyday wear, aiming to find practical and sustainable solutions through smart textiles and electronics in garments by producing, having ethical production and transparent one, as well as sensible production quantity, using mainly local supply chain for long-lasting designs. We've added the segment of everyday wear in the concept of slow fashion after we initially started to do research on technology, but then we had to balance the commercial aspect of the studio to be able to maintain all of our researches that I would like to share with you today regarding textiles and technology and for future fashion. But initially, I would like to get more involved in the fashion wearable technology, where our main focus is. For me, it started all from costume design. I did my MA at London College of Fashion, studying costume design for performance and focusing mainly in interactive garments through the first project, which was Morphogenesis of Emotion, that was done in collaboration with interaction designer Betty Zhang. And for me, it was really a curiosity to explore the relation between the body and technology, and how can we use technology to enhance the performance or use it as a communicative tool. So how can we use technology to really expand, transform, and communicate through the garment? And that also led to the other project, which is called Organic Extimorph. And for me, the starting point was really to explore psychology and biology and all the biometrical measures and all the body changes that can be manifested in the costume through technology using motor sensors, engineering and biology, nanotechnology, AI, soft robotics, to create functional clothes through reactive and smart textiles. And also, additionally, we went and researched on digital textiles, 3D textiles, which I'm gonna talk about later on in a bit. What's really interesting in terms of innovation and sustainability that we are really keen to explore is mainly in textiles, and how can we create functional garments through these textiles. And when I say functional garments, is how can we really make these garments transform, change, or move to be multifunctional and long-lasting in terms of sustainability. So my idea of adding furthermore, not only in costume design, but also in fashion design technology, is really how can we create garments that can stay longer in our closet, garments that we can control through our phones or via Bluetooth, such as this garment that you are seeing, which is done by American company Morpheus, with whom we are in collaboration in making a color changing garment, which adds on to is an extensive research on the programmable textiles, which have been really researched more in many labs around the world that we based our research on, especially at MIT, specifically in programmable textiles that we can use in the future. These programmable textiles use biomimicry and soft robotics to imitate nature, basically, because some biologists have observed that living things, from pine to microbial cells to proteins, enzymes, can change their structure or volumes when there is a change in humidity, meaning that if we can imitate these changes from the nature, we can actually translate them into textiles and make a long-lasting and multifunctional textiles that, based on the body measurements or biometrical measurements, can do a specific function for us, whether that's going to be for entertainment, for fashion purposes, and also it extends in the medical world as well. What's interesting in these researches that we've done, that you can use many different materials in the nature. Specifically, the one that you're seeing is from a wood, like printed wood, that can be self-transformed in controlled ways using a phone app and having also conductive threads integrated. And what's probably more approachable just recently, that has been something we are really focused, is analyzing biotextiles that can have conductive capacity. So biotextiles such as bacteria, yeast, or kombucha, or algae and fungi have been used, as you can see in the garment done by Suzanne Lee, by the collection Biocouture. But what's more interesting in terms of innovation and technology is that, for example, bacteria has natural conductive capacity. So you can actually integrate slight and small electronics in it and then control it again for body temperature, if that's the case, for heart rate, or any other necessary biometrical measure that can be done through the garment. And although it sounds dangerous because it has a term conductive, it doesn't use electricity as such, so it's body friendly. And bottom line, it's quite sustainable, but because at the end of this garment's life cycle, this garment is biodegradable, and the electronic can be used for other purposes additionally as well. What we are working in this year with Fight or Flight is in 3D printed textiles and clothes, which is more approachable for now, because obviously in the fashion tech world, everything has to be really so advanced. And for now, we have just started. We are 2 years old, and we are really using some basic materials and electronics to just demonstrate and create prototypes to demonstrate a certain function in the garment. But this one with 3D printed textile has more, sends a message regarding the environment and sustainability, because 3D printed textiles uses less transport, for example, as a regular collection would do. So that means less carbon emission. So it doesn't have to be transferred from one country to the other. Is a lighter product and is easily economically manufactured. And in the future, it's supposed that we might have 3D printers at home that we can make our own clothes and maybe easily repair some parts of our clothes. So instead of buying a new one, we can replace some parts of the garments. So that means we can consume less. 3D printed textiles have less waste. So it also uses environmentally friendly materials by using recycled filaments that can be recycled at the end of the garment's life cycle, meaning that out of this garment you can create something else, something new. And I think this is a really innovative and futuristic approach towards the design and fashion. And lastly, which is something which has been really brought up by the pandemic situations in the past year that we've witnessed is digital fashion through virtual garments and digital avatars, and what this really contributes in terms of sustainability and specifically fast fashion, since that is something probably that is the key problem here, is that we can create digital garments and then we can see how they fit in our body. We can create our personal avatar, upload it in the app or on the website, and see how this garment fits in our body, or do we actually like it. And in this way, we actually have our, in a way, ready-made clothes, or like based on requests. So in the future or in long term, we don't have to produce, we don't have to have mass production on specific garments, but we can actually just use those that are being requested. And I think this is a really interesting and quite approachable way into just using a new
Thank you.
Now it's time for the Q&A section. We have 10 minutes. I saw that we already have some comments in the chat box. I saw a lot of comments on the presentation made by Hannah. There is a comment from Berta. She said, rich in color and form, mind-blowing, great presentation, Hannah. And I totally agree with this comment. And we have some interesting comments coming from Viljana Karushkova. Do you want to address them directly to Professor King? And I think the second one was to Hannah.
It was a question for Professor King because he told us that he wanted to see something different, and I would like to know if you mean different like visually or more conceptually when you speak about our design in the Balkans.
Hi, yeah. I mean, let me say straight away, you know, there's been some fantastic designs today and they're very beautiful and I'm really impressed with the quality. But I'll be honest, I've seen lots of them. You know, I've seen lots of them over many years and I admire the passion and the kind of energy that goes into them. But at the end of the day, I have to ask them a basic question. And this is the question I ask, really. You know, is fashion for you an art form? And therefore, all you need to worry about is producing fashion in terms of your own, for yourself, in terms of what you want to produce? Or do you see it as fashion as an investment for your future in terms of it as a business? Now, they're two different questions there, or the same question, it really is. Now, if you want to put those two together, okay, then you have the ingredients here, or the ingredients there in the Balkans. You know, you can do this holistic approach to fashion. And that, I think, is an advantage that other parts of Europe doesn't have. And therefore, you should use it. So when I say I'm looking for something different, it's not as simple as visually or conceptual. I think it's a new mindset. It's actually about changing the business model. I know fashion design people don't like to talk about business, but really, you know, if you want to have a sustainable future and you have to actually look at the kind of the needs and how things have changed in the last year, even how things have moved on in fashion, you need to think about it differently because the old ways of fashion design are coming to an end. You know, where the old days of having these enigmatic fashion designers that will be a big guru and therefore everyone's going to buy their design. Those days are gone. You know, the big companies don't want them anymore. They bring in teams of people because they know that these individuals are not selling as they used to. So the days of big brands, the days of luxury in the concept of what we're doing are all going to disappear. What we understand by luxury, for example, will also change. You know, we're also seeing this whole notion of how people are buying, what they're consuming, but also how they're storing things, how they recycle things. This is a huge opportunity for fashion. You know, not people sometimes see it as a negative. I don't think you need to. You can see this as an opportunity, and the Balkans can play a particularly strong role here because you have something that other parts of Europe can't do. And I'll give you an example, just one example, and I'll stop, promise you. In France, Paris, in the last fashion week, no, not the last fashion, a few fashion weeks ago now, one of the designers said to me, he said he was appalled. He said, do you know, he said, in France now, there is no one who can still do a French seam. Now, a French seam is a classical seam. And do you know what they had to do? They had to go to China to ask a Chinese person to come to Paris to teach them again how to do a French seam. Now, that is an alarming problem. And that problem, okay, is not with you in the Balkans. You still have this skill base. Value it, protect it, invest in it, because that is your competitive advantage. Invest in what you have. Someone wrote something beforehand about a notion of identity. I think you're right. You know, the question about whether in fact we're losing your identity. I think you are, but you haven't lost it yet. So don't lose it. You know, invest in what you have and then you can develop it for the future. I'll stop now.
No, it's perfect. I totally agree with what you said. Of course, we have that advantage, but I think it's because we really start doing things from scratch, and we really do start with small. Because in Western Europe, as I saw, mostly in universities, like the production, it starts with big, and it starts with someone producing for your designs. And here, most of us, as far as I know, we do start by our own, and we start by.
I think that's a mistake as well, because I think if you're starting on your own, that's not the future either. You've got to work as cooperatives. You've got to work in cooperations. You've got to work in collaboration. So you share the costs. You don't have all the costs yourself. You share the cost, you share the benefits, and therefore work together as a way in which you can still have your own individual designs, and you still have your own individual studios, and you still have your value systems. But sharing the basic notions of resources is the core of what the future is for you. Don't try and do it alone. Work with people who can help you. And that's the future. And where I've seen it in other parts of the world where they do that, it's how they're moving forward. So the Balkans can be a really important part of fashion, but they need to invest and work about what their resources and what their competitive advantage is now. Because I'll be honest, and I'm going to be very crude here, no one in the world is waiting for another fashion designer. No one. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So you've got to therefore change it. And that's why I'm saying about difference. You've got to change the whole concept about what we expect from fashion and design for the 21st century. And it's what the pandemic has shown us across the world is that breathing space for you to sit back and go, okay, what can we do that's different, that we can make a difference? It may start locally, fine, but you will, if it works, it will then go nationally and then internationally. So,
thank you very much. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thanks to Professor King again. Liliana, I see that you have another question regarding the conflict between new technological approaches and handcraft. Do you want to address it to someone in particular?
Well, if someone wants to answer, I will be pleased to hear your answers. So no one in particular. I think it's a general question because those are totally different paths, and my question is if they can work together.
I'd
I
like
answer
to
the question.
answer.
Sorry, Hannah, you're the first one to answer.
No, I just wanted to say that maybe I wouldn't call it a conflict, really. I think they can really be merged together or can work apart. I mean, for example, the biotextiles that I mentioned earlier, that's a handcraft as well. It's a process of making that textiles that maybe in the future can be mass produced through some labs or some other procedures that can be set in place. But then you add the technology, so then you can still merge these two. I think I consider technology just an alternative. So I guess it's a choice, it's an option aside handcraft. So I think what we are really trying to do here is really explore the world of textiles. For me, I think that's a great opportunity in introducing technology as well. Then maybe in the future we can just add we can interact with our garment, we can add a function and not just have our clothes only for appearance. So that's really what I'm personally keen on exploring and combining these two elements together, adding functionality to clothes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I read a comment from Traice Tomov. I just want to say that the Balkan Peninsula is full with potential, fabulous designers who can represent our countries and put them in a great light. But one system have not established proper challenges for recognizing them. So if there is someone with an idea on how this issue can be solved, let him feel free to suggest. And well done, Hannah. He liked your presentation a lot. So he's talking about a system, that we need to establish a system in order to make changes and become recognizable. Okay, I see your hand, Professor King.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've already heard how to do this. You know, you've heard it in your presentations today. You've heard from, you know, some of the example of what's happening in Albania. You know, this is the kind of template that's going across the world. You know, people are looking at what they do. They're looking at their own heritage. They're saying what they want to value. They're realizing what they can do. Okay, and then they look at the appropriate responsibilities across across the cities, across the governments, and they start to say, this is the future. Now, I mean, as I said, I think I mentioned yesterday, and I'm speaking to the Prime Minister's office on Monday about this same investment in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. They're doing it. They were going ahead because they see the future is the creative industries. And one of the biggest creative industries and the most successful creative industries is fashion across the world. So it's also a way of actually providing support for young people. It's a really useful way of supporting women. It's actually a really useful way about people who are actually need to be retrained. There's a realization about people don't need this. There's not the barriers to entry in fashion that there is in so many other industries. So it's a win-win for a country to invest into fashion at this time. There's no brain ache about this at all. It's there and it needs to be done. The voices need to come to the fore. Local voices who believe in what they're doing and actually say, this is the framework we can do. Working in cooperatives. Some of the buildings in your cities are empty. Why? Use them and make sure there's a cooperative there. Look for ways in which those buildings can be used in a very productive way. Then you can say, okay, how can we then invest in local communities? Then you go in a different way. It's a very simple starting point, but it all starts from the same point, cooperation and a voice.
Thank you very much, Ian. I think that's so important, and I think this is a great advice for all the designers and the fashion community listening to this conversation. I think we have a lot of work in front of us. I think we need to make lots of changes, and we really appreciate your advice and your experience, and thank you again. So now I think it's time to close this webinar and to discuss the next steps. And I want to say just a few final words. We heard numerous interesting presentations and ideas, and I think there is a lot to reflect upon. I just want to summarize these 2 days. I would say that the key values to create tangible and long-term results in the fashion and crafts ecosystem in the Balkan are comprehensive education, strong collaboration, as Professor King mentioned just now, in-depth research, innovative thinking, and amalgamation of fashion and craftsmanship, especially among the young generations. Now I want to give the word to Sveta. These 2 days were quite interesting, and what are your impressions and the next steps for Balkan fashion and crafts unity?
I would like to start maybe similar to the summary. During these 2 days, I suggest, summarize, I suggest we should start like a region, our conversation with the government's efforts towards developing a regional idea in the fields of craft and fashion. It's very important for us, and maybe for me, like event maker, it's first step. And like Ian told, the most important it's voice and collaboration. And during these 2 days, we're hearing a lot of stories and successful stories, and it's already collaborations. I'm happy about it. Additionally, the crucial factor is rethinking the value of fashion and creative education. The students and the young designers are playing a key role in taking the first step when it comes to developing an alternative, sustainable and ethical future of fashion and crafts in our region. It's very important, and I'm very thankful for Kirsten from Instituto Marangoni that we create so amazing project with the students, with their mentors, and it's a very, very amazing collaboration. And the results, our students was inspiring of how to do a lot. Just to be shortly, I would like to thank you for making this first Responsible Fashion Series in Skopje. We have heard so many inspired stories from you, learn about your work, and my special thank you for Ian King, for Kirsten Scott, and our moderator Christina. I really appreciate that you spent with us these 2 days, and I'm looking forward to see you on next station, Responsible Fashion Series in Antwerp in October 2021. Maybe Ian can tell something more. He's always 10 steps in future, and maybe you can tell about your new project which will be in Antwerp.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can tell you about Antwerp. Antwerp is going to be at the end of October of this year. It's going to be an event that's both online and physical. It's going to be, we had around, I think, 200 submissions from 35 countries. I think that was the kind of number. We are at the moment developing the program. We have people who would do everything from talking about technology, as we heard from Hannah, and about the content. We're going to have a panel on IP, for example. We're also going to be talking to people about can fashion save the world? We're looking at the future of creativity, and in fact, for example, there's a question mark whether in fact creativity will remain an individual perspective or whether in fact it now becomes a team perspective. And this is because some of the fashion houses now are moving away from individual appointments to actually team appointments. So that's a fact that we're going to talk about. And in the beginning of, in April 2022, we have an event in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, which includes a nomadic trek between Tashkent and Almaty, 800 kilometers. And we are following the kind of traditions of the Silk Road. And we're going to look at some of those issues and the challenges of craftsmanship for people who are doing this. So it's not going to be us talking about what the people should do. We're going to be actually talking to people who actually do this and the challenges they face and what needs to be in place. So that event will be televised. We're making a documentary with that. So that should go across certain parts of Asia, I hope. We're also going to do that. That's also going to be a UNESCO event. So we're going to make that kind of a way in which we can raise the profile of craftsmanship in Central Asia and other parts of the area that largely gets overlooked. And so I hope some of the people here might be interested in joining that as well. So, and then we have other events in Sri Lanka in the future, and another one in Japan, in fact. But the Japan one's been pushed back a bit because of the issues they're facing at the present time. So we have a number of different events, and all of these events will be sponsored and supported by Parsons from New York. So that's going to be fun. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian. You have so many inspiring projects ahead, actually. That's so nice. And I want to thank our hosts again, Sveta and Ian, for being with us and for organizing this event for the first time in the Balkan region. I want to thank the guest speakers, the participants, and the audience. It was really a pleasure to be your moderator these 2 days. And I really hope that soon enough we can all meet in person and have a different experience and have a presence there. And I'm really happy I was with you during these 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. It was very nice to meet you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Meet you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.